Okay, in Lesson 5, we're going to cover the third string. The third string is called G, and unlike B or E, in this case, the note head is actually placed on the second line from the bottom. So you can distinguish it from B because the B note head is placed on the middle line. G is placed on the line below it on the staff. So G is the third string. We're going to continue using rest strokes. We're going to play exercise 8A on page 17. And in this case, we're going to play not only the first and second strings, but we're going to add the third string. And you're going to have to find the strings with the proper finger. It's super important. So notice also this example throws in for the first time the ring finger. So we're going to prepare by placing the thumb, P, on the sixth string, I on the third, M on the second string, and A on the first string. Remember, A is the name of, or the label that we use for the ring finger. So in this case, we're going to pluck a different pattern in each measure. So look carefully at this example. Example 8A, free strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And one thing you probably noticed is that I only have us place our fingers prepared on the strings when we first start so that you know where to find them. If I were actually playing this piece, having practiced a lot, I would not place my fingers on the strings before I begin. So now let's look at example 8B. Example 8B has a somewhat odd meter signature. There are 6 counts or plucks in each measure. And again, we're going to use our ring finger, finger A. So example 8B, very slowly on the count of 6 this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you look at the notation in the textbook, you'll notice a couple symbols there that are Italian words. Lento, which means slow, and simile. Now, simile is a term that's used a lot in music. It just means continue in a similar manner. We're going to now take a look at some symbols that represent silence. They're called rests in music. We have every sound symbol, like a quarter note, half note, whole note, has an equivalent rest symbol that represents the duration of silence. The little squiggly mark is called a quarter rest. The half rest sits on top of the line and almost looks like a hat when it's floating in the air on the page like that. It represents a sound or a silence that is 2 beats long. If we have the half rest with a dot, it represents a silence that's 3 beats long. And then finally the whole rest looks like an upside down hat, and that particular symbol represents a silence that lasts for 4 counts. In example 9A in the text, we have a combination of different rest symbols. And if you look at the first measure, we have 2 G's, 1, 2, and then on count 3, we would have a rest or silence. Now notice how that little block sits on the top of the middle line. When you have a whole rest, it sits on the higher line and it hangs down. It doesn't sit on it, it hangs on it. You'll notice that later when we see it. When you're playing rests, you have to mute the strings. You have to cut them off from ringing, and that's a technique that's fairly difficult to do when you're first starting. I will do that right now for demonstration, but if you find it difficult to follow along, mute the strings and then get your hand back in position. That's okay. We will use rests more later. So this is example 9A. Example 9A, we're going to use rest strokes, and it combines the third string G, the second string B, and the first string E with rests. You'll notice when I execute the rest, I use my side of my palm of my hand here to mute the strings lightly. Here we go, example 9A. Do your best to play along, but more than anything you want to observe. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in that example, I made a right hand fingering mistake. I did not pluck one of the patterns as indicated. See if you can catch that. So now we're going to look at the open string trio. The open string trio is on page 19 of the text. What I would like you to do here is try each of the 3 lines. These are 3 lines of music all running at the same time. Pick one. For example, just pick the top line, guitar 1, and try to just play that, observing the rests. And then try it again, looking at guitar 2 part. And then once again looking at the third guitar part. I'm going to play all 3 parts at once now so that you can play along, but you should only do one of them at a time. Here we go. On the count of 4, this is the open string trio. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice that my fingering there in my right hand was slightly different than what's indicated, but that's because your part is indicated as an individual part, not meant to be played all at the same time. So that does it for this lesson.